Because I'm telling you right now that all across the state and all across America, there are people that may not agree with us on what the tax rate should be. There are people that may not agree with us on how much regulation there should be in government. There are people that may not agree with us on a variety of issues. There are people that perhaps have never voted the same way any of you have in a presidential race, and they're really angry. And they're getting rid of school board members because you're coming for their kids. And they're getting rid of local government officials because they're coming for their business. And they'll get rid of federal leaders that are coming for their freedom. These are people that are not ideological. Here's what they believe in: common sense, wisdom, and values. The notion that parents should have the predominant role to play in their children's lives, that people should be able to say and speak freely in this country, that this is the greatest nation on earth, not an inherently evil one. They believe in these things too. And that's why I believe that for all the negative we've heard, the pendulum is swinging. The pendulum is swinging. And I believe we are on the precipice, on the verge of a reinvigoration of the American spirit that will not just strengthen America. It will leave us freer and more prosperous than we have ever been. So let's go out and make sure that happens. God bless all of you. And let's keep CPAC in Florida. Thank you. God bless you.
mask everywhere, even in the bathroom. Okay, so this is seriously going to be the CPAC talk show format. We actually get to do this every week on CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. Matt and I have a show 3 times a week. If you haven't watched it, it's really a lot of fun. You just go to conservative.org. It's like you can watch it anytime, and we have wonderful guests, and so we thought this would be a great opportunity to bring on some really remarkable leaders in our nation who are on the front lines fighting on all different levels, from the political level to the community level, in our school boards. And so I'm just so thrilled that I have this wonderful opportunity to not be Whoopi or Joy, but to be a strong conservative woman who's going to be able to talk to these fabulous guests that we have. So let's not waste any time, let's get going. All right, my first guest, Congressman Jim Banks, wonderful congressman from the state of Indiana. He's also the chairman of the Republican Study Committee. Jim, come on down. All right, you're over here over to my left. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's jump right into it. We were talking about being the fighters on the front line, and you and I were having a great conversation backstage about how the year of 2021 was the year to try to cancel Jim Banks on every sort of level. First of all, let me throw out a name to you, and then you give me a reaction. Nancy Pelosi. So what happened that you actually got kicked off of a committee? Walk us through the process.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of January 2021. We had the election, then we had January 6th. By the way, I will never, ever apologize for objecting to an unconstitutional election in November of 2020. So January 6th happened, obviously a really terrible day, a riot at the United States Capitol, something that saddens most of us, all of us. And then we had January 20th, when we replaced the best president of my lifetime with the worst president that we've ever had in American history. So then we had this debate in the Nancy Pelosi-led Congress about organizing a bipartisan commission to study January 6th, to do everything that we can to make sure that something like January 6th never happens again.
Right.
That's a valid goal. Unfortunately, the sham January 6th commission that Pelosi and Cheney lead don't have any interest at all in doing that. But Kevin McCarthy, who was on the stage with me last year, he asked me to be the Republican leader of the Jan 6 sham committee so that we could fight back and do the real work of actually studying what happened that day, digging into important questions like why did Nancy Pelosi, who was in charge of Capitol security, block the National Guard from coming to protect the Capitol? That's an important question, right?
Yep.
So it didn't take more than 2 or 3 days when one of my true heroes in the United States Congress, Jim Jordan, who was also selected by Kevin McCarthy to be a part of the committee with me, when we both got canceled and kicked off of the committee by Nancy Pelosi. It's never happened in congressional history before.
How did she reach out to you and let you know about, like, that you were not going to be part of this?
I was at a Republican Study Committee meeting. We meet every Wednesday with our conservative colleagues in the House. I found out a bit about it on Twitter.
Well, not surprising. As well as they actually, when they subpoena these young kids, many times they find out on Twitter because that's where they post the letters, or they go straight to their jobs to give them these subpoenaed letters.
Make no doubt about it, this is a political witch hunt. This is a dangerous path by the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, their best friend, the Democrats' best friend, Nancy Pelosi, and Adam Kinzinger. This is their power play to erase and to attack anyone who disagrees with their agenda.
Jim, were you surprised that Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger both just supported this effort by Nancy Pelosi to really you know what their whole goal is. They want to throw Donald Trump in jail. I mean, that's their whole goal. They want to find a crime if they can. I mean, were you surprised that 2 of your colleagues moved in that direction?
Unfortunately, no. In both cases, Liz Cheney would rather have Nancy Pelosi in the Speaker's chair than any Republican at this point. And that's why, by the way, I commend the RNC for censoring Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney because they deserve it.
But, you know, we've seen some Republican politicians like Mitch McConnell, he doesn't agree with the censorship. I mean, where do we stand there when you have certain Republicans trying to protect these so-called, I don't even call them Republicans anymore, but I mean, what do you think about those Republicans that are trying to say, no, we can't have this happen?
Look, when you look at what this sham January 6th committee has done, how they've abused the power of the Congress to go after their political enemies, I don't know how you can arrive at any other place than agreeing with the RNC and others who believe that there is no place in the Republican Party for those who abuse their power, like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger.
So let me ask you, you know, we're going to get into these midterm elections obviously this year in 2022. What do you think the committee, what is going to be the end result of this committee? What are we're expecting from the January 6th committee?
Well, it's obviously a political circus that's designed to take all the attention away from what Americans really care about, which is inflation, crime. Fentanyl is the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, working age Americans today because of the border crisis. The border crisis is another issue that the Americans care deeply about. The foreign policy missteps of this president who, Bob Gates was right when he said Joe Biden has been wrong on every major foreign policy issue for 40 years, and he wrote that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what the American people care about, but the Democrats know that this is going so badly for Joe Biden and for the Democrats that they will do anything to change the subject.
So you were also canceled on Twitter. Why?
I called a biological man a man, and I got kicked off of Twitter. I imagine it's happened to some of you as well. But these are the tactics designed by the left, right? The January 6th committee to go after political opponents, anyone who was associated with Donald Trump before, during, or after January 6th, and their friends in the big tech who want to silence all of us for what we believe as well.
Obviously, we're seeing the Russian aggression into Ukraine. Now we're seeing Ukraine mobilize their troops to try to see if they can fight against a massive army. I mean, when you're watching this from obviously being a congressional member, how do you think the Biden administration should be handling this? And also talk a little bit about Afghanistan. But first, let's talk Russia.
Well, we can't get to Russia before talking for a moment about Afghanistan. I served in uniform in Afghanistan. It was the proudest moments of my life was putting on the uniform and serving my country. And to this moment, as I sit here with all of you today, it makes me sick to my stomach to see the way that Joe Biden embarrassed America on the world stage. But Putin, Xi, Iran, all of our adversaries were watching that moment, and that's why they're seizing on this moment, a moment of unparalleled and historic American weakness to act out and do what they've always wanted to do. In Putin's case, to invade Ukraine. He knew he could get away with it because he had Joe Biden figured out the day that Joe Biden came into office. He knew that this was the moment that he had been waiting for. After 4 years of a very strong president, this would have never happened on Donald Trump's watch. But Putin gamed it out. He knew that when Joe Biden became the president, he could get away with it. And I fear that Xi and the Chinese Communist Party, they know that they can get away with invading Taiwan as well because of this very historic, weak moment for America. So that's what makes me sick to my stomach about Ukraine as well. As a member of Congress, I went to Ukraine a couple of years ago. I went out in the east on an army base where I watched firsthand American troops training the Ukrainian troops to fight back against Russian aggression. That was on Donald Trump's watch as commander-in-chief. And what we are seeing before our eyes, if you go on Twitter right now or online, any of the platforms, Truth Social, any of the platforms online, you'll see videos of the Ukrainian soldiers fighting back, and thank God. They're doing that because we helped them, we trained them, we gave them our American fighting spirit along the way, and we're seeing them use it.
Right, and we have troops on the ground in Poland. I mean, what's your message to them?
This is a historic moment for America to lead. And right now, while we have a president and a commander-in-chief who is not a leader, we have young men and women who are brave, who raised their right hand like I did, to protect and defend American freedom and values. And at this point, though, my message to the world is this was completely avoidable. But better days lie ahead. 2022, November is here. It's right around the corner. At that moment, we're going to take back our country from the radical left who is trying to tear it down.
Thank you, Congressman Jim Banks. We're so honored to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
See you. Thanks. Thank you.
All right, the CPAC show continues. Now we have two great, fantastic women, both with incredible experience. Kimberly Fletcher, I don't know if you saw this big truck outside, the Moms for America truck. They are literally going out to Oklahoma and then ending up in Washington, D.C. She'll tell us more. Kimberly Fletcher, Moms for America. Tudor Dixon, our Republican gubernatorial candidate from the great state of Michigan. They join me on stage. Hi. Hello, my darling friend. Okay, you're right here. Okay, so I'm trying to get Matt to get CPAC pillows because apparently everybody loves them. So we're gonna try to get these in the merch store at some time. Ladies, hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Right View. Whoopi couldn't make it, but that's okay. She's in a little trouble these days, along with Chris Cuomo and Jeff Zucker. Oh, the list goes on and on.
There's no trouble on that side.
There's no trouble on that side. Okay, well, let's get right to it. Tudor, you have an amazing story. You're such an inspiration to so many women who are always wondering, should I get involved in politics? Should I not? You took this big step to go into what I would say is a purple state, Michigan, to run. What are you seeing on the ground right now? What are the issues that are mattering to the people of Michigan, which I know obviously impacts the whole country?
Yeah, right, the issues in Michigan are very similar to the country, but we are a very strong small business state. And small business is being crushed in the state of Michigan. So we have to bring that back, but that goes to our children. Because education, we're failing our children in education. If we cannot graduate children that can read, you can't go into a skilled trade, you can't go to college. We need to be there for our kids. And guess what? During the pandemic, we saw some things in our schools we didn't like, didn't we?
And you're a mother of 4.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I got one upper. I got the 5.
This is my inspiration, though, but I'm not going for 5.
So, and you're a mother of 4, so you get it. You understand where this is impacting.
Yes, my kids are in school, so I'm walking alongside all of you parents out there that are seeing these things. And in Michigan, we've had parents on the other side saying, this isn't happening. But we just in December, there was the 21-day equity challenge. So this is a new thing. When we were in high school, they were telling us, words can't hurt you. Now we have schools saying, this is a list of the words and phrases that should hurt you. This is bananas that we're seeing this. And one of those phrases is to call the United States of America the land of opportunity. That's a microaggression now.
Oh, Lord. That's
Yes.
in Michigan?
Yes.
Oh, my Lord. Well, we'll get into the present governor, which I find her to be
The worst
scary.
governor in America?
Exactly. Kimberly, let me go to you. Okay, so yesterday you had this press conference with this truck. It's a woman truck driver. She is so cool. I couldn't drive that thing because I'd crash it in 2 seconds. Can you explain what you all are doing, being part of the Freedom Truck Convoy that's going through the United States to end up at the slum?
So I think that the memes that are going out everywhere, they absolutely are saying it for us. Moms and truckers are going to save the country.
Yes.
So
I'm going to say dads too, okay? We need the dads. We need the...
I want to make it clear that Moms for America is a national movement of women who love men. So we're standing with our men to fight this big fight. So the truck, we have embedded with the People's Convoy that started in Barstow on Wednesday. We have 2 moms that are in that convoy heading east. And we have 3 moms, including Mary, our truck driver mom, okay? She's a mom truck driver, who is in this big purple rig with the Constitution, the Statue of Liberty all over it. And they are heading west. They will meet in Oklahoma City and head to Washington, D.C. to send a powerful statement. You don't rule over us, you serve us. We are the government, and the moms are rising up to defend our freedoms.
So, Tudor, let's go back to the Governor Whitmer of Michigan. I mean, she has been one of the biggest hypocrites I've ever seen in politics, where it's like, what applies to me does not apply to you. It's that sort of mentality. Why does she have to be defeated?
She has to be defeated because she wants to defeat America. That's what she wants to do. She wants to crush Americans. She wants to crush the people of Michigan. You talk about the trucker convoy. This is a governor who just 2 weeks ago said whatever it takes. She was willing to send our heavy equipment into Canada to crush the truckers over there. We know she is willing to do whatever it takes because she did whatever it took in Michigan. I don't know if you're aware of what happened to us, but you couldn't garden. You couldn't have a boat with a motor. You could golf you could walk, but you couldn't take a golf cart. We had ridiculous draconian rules that were controlling us, but it continues beyond the pandemic. And when she says whatever it takes for government to be in control, she absolutely is not into serving the people. This is not a governor who understands service. She understands tyranny and power.
She reminds me of a prime minister Justin Trudeau up in Canada. She might be related to him. There it goes. All right, let's say it together. Trudeau. There you go. Fauci. There you go. Perfect. All right, Kimberly. So we had a press conference, which was one of the most memorable experiences I've had with these amazing group of moms in front of the National School Board Association. What was the message, and explain why that event was so important?
So we've had moms who've been contacting us all over the country, talking about their children having the masks taped to their mouths by teachers. The mask mouth is now a real thing where children are having staph infection and tooth decay. We've had moms who are talking about these forced vaccines. I mean, all of these things that are flooding to us, from the medical mandates to the curriculum in our children's schools. And we realized that this is all coming from not just the teachers' unions, but associations, lobbying associations that we're paying for with our tax dollars. And the National School Board Association is one of them. Every state has one. They have a superintendent's association, and they're all funded by our tax dollars that go to the district. So we decided, when we were declared domestic terrorists, that we needed to take a stand, and so we went and stood outside the National School Board Association and sent a powerful message to both the NSBA and the DOJ and made it clear that these are our children. And you are there to support us, not to restrict us, not to regulate us, not to replace us. And we had moms from all over the country who came and stood strong with those messages.
Tudor, let's talk about, what's your agenda, your first 100-day agenda as governor of Michigan?
Well, I want to say what she just talked about is very important to the state of Michigan as well, because we had children that were out of school in some cases for over a year.
Wow.
So it's very important for parents to be involved, but the Michigan Democratic Party just posted they don't want parents involved, just like everybody else on the left side. So it's insane, but our agenda, our first 100 days, we're looking at education first. We want 25 hours of tutoring for each student in Michigan because of that, because our students lost out on so much. We were already behind the rest of the country and lost over a year of learning. This governor has vetoed every opportunity to help our students. We have got to get our students back on track, but how about we have dollars follow the child? Let's make sure. Like Kimberly's saying, let's get parents back involved in the child's education. And you know what the left will tell me so often? You're wrong, parents won't get involved. I think we've proven that parents will get involved.
We absolutely have. Moms and dads are on the front lines fighting for our kids right now.
We also are calling for the Parents' Right to Know Act. We want parents to know what's happening in their classrooms.
Yep.
It should be 3 clicks to your child's classroom. You should be able to see what's in the classroom library. You should be able to see what's in the school library, what CRT, DEI, all of these things, because you can say, I'm going to get rid of CRT, but guess what? These folks will rename it. We have to be aware of what's happening. Transparency in our schools is key. We deserve to know what you are teaching. and then we can have a conversation about it. And somebody said something to me that I think is very valuable. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and our schools need to be disinfected.
Great point. Great point. Kimberly, as you're talking to moms across the country, what is their sense as we've entered into 2022? I mean, some of these moms have never been political before, right? They've never been engaged, and all of a sudden they're waking up.
So I'd have to say that Virginia is a perfect example of what's about to come.
Right.
And everybody talks about, you know, what happened with Youngkin and Winsome Sears, which is amazing and awesome. That was moms, okay, that was moms. But what we have learned in working with moms over the last 16 years is that the vast majority of conservative women of faith are not voting. Most of them aren't even registered to vote. And what you saw in Virginia, that's what happens when they do. And now moms are empowered. And not only did we win Virginia, but in 17 states, we won school board races. We had a mom in Pennsylvania who not only said, because of you guys, I'm gonna run for school board, she went and enlisted 7 other people to run for school board and city council, and they all won.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. We're running out of time, but I wanna get your final thoughts, Tudor, on what is your message for our CPAC crowd here as we're going into the midterm elections, as we're going into these important gubernatorial races across the country?
Take a look at the change in our country in just 1 year. It's so important that everybody get involved. I have heard for years, you know what, I'm involved in my church, I don't want to be involved politically, I feel like there's a conflict. There is not a conflict, because we have to protect our religious liberties, and to do that, we have to be involved in the political world.
Your vote is your voice for your values. That is our big message, yep. So if you are not voting, then your values are not represented, your voice is not heard, and I think now moms are really empowered to realize there's something I can do. I can vote, I can voice my values, and I can run for school board and support those who are running. Everything's about local now. The most powerful elected office in the country is not president and Congress. It's sheriff and school board, and that's where we're focusing our efforts.
Wow. Thank you, ladies, so much. This is a wonderful discussion. Tudor Dixon, Kimberly Fletcher, aren't they fabulous? Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I give you a hug. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Okay, who's up next? All right, we've got a really fascinating group of ladies, and gentlemen. Layla Settner, she runs the Settner Academy down in South Florida. She's been a fearless leader in this area of making sure that our kids don't have to wear masks. Hannah Smith, South Lake, Texas school board member, and Brandon Leslie, Florida's conservative voice. Come on down. People, come on, you got energy. It's second day of CPAC. Hello, how are you? Layla, great to see you. Hannah, come on in. Brandon, how are you, sir? Great to meet you too. All right, let's get started. We've been having a lot of great conversations here with some of our wonderful, what I call freedom fighters in this country. I've gotten to know you so well, Layla, and I just want to get a sense, you run this incredible school down in South Florida, and all of a sudden, her school becomes like the ground zero of all the left-wing media trying to destroy your school. Tell your story.
So I own a school in Miami, Florida, and I took a stance from when school reopened in September 2020, where I refused to mandate masks. I refuse to socially distance our kids. Thank you.
And let's remember, it was 2020, okay? This was just when it was getting started.
I refuse to plexiglass. I refuse to force my kids to use the hand sanitizer 50 times a day. And I just did the common sense thing. I increased my cleaning staff. I put UV lights in the HVAC system to help clear the air. And I let the kids be happy, normal kids, because that's how they're gonna have a strong immune system. Thank you. Fast forward in April, when all the teachers started getting the COVID shot, I took a stand and I said, I really don't want teachers to get the shot, because we don't know of the possibility of the vaccinated impacting the unvaccinated kids. I have several doctors who are in this community, and they've been seeing cases of weird things that are happening. And I said, look, let's err on the side of caution. This is still an experiment. It's in the testing phase. We don't know what we don't know. We have a very healthy young staff, and the CDC data was already out. Overall, there was a 99.74% recovery rate from COVID, so I knew this wasn't a life or death situation. And when I made that stance, basically the media went ballistics, and they went all over me, even though there are schools, even to this day, in fact, 2 weeks ago in New York, they fired 800 teachers, and I never fired one soul.
No.
They fired...
No, that's true.
They fired 800 teachers because they didn't get the shot. And even though I have not fired anyone, they came after me. Why? Because I did not fit the propaganda that they were selling.
Right, and you had your own opinion on how you wanted to run your facility and not let the government dictate those terms.
Exactly.
Hannah, let's go into your story as a school board member. Tell us what happened to you. Tell us what the situation was.
Sure. Well, I'm from South Lake, Texas. Yay, all Texans out there. And in 2020, the left came for our kids. They wanted to pass a 34-page plan that would have radically transformed our entire school district, from microaggression tracking to equity audits of our curriculum to teacher performance metrics that would measure wokeness for our teachers. And that plan was defeated because parents like you stood up and said, no, this is not happening to our kids in our schools on our watch. So we defeated that plan. We had school board trustee candidates rise up and say, we're going to run for school board. We're going to take back our school board. And my friend Cam Bryan and I won our school board election last May with 70% of the vote. We're still taking back our school board. We have 2 more candidates running this spring, and we're really excited to move forward with a school district that represents the values of our community. But it's really important to remember that this can happen anywhere. We're in one of the reddest counties in Texas, and they came for our kids and our schools. If this can happen in Loudoun County and South Lake, Texas, it can happen anywhere. So if you look just a couple weeks ago in San Francisco, there was a recall vote for 3 school board members. They won by 70% of the vote in San Francisco, California, okay? So you can do this. If you care about your kids, you care about their future, the spirit of the American Revolution is alive and well. We don't want the government telling us what to do with our kids, our families, or our schools. Take back your school boards just like we did in South Lake, Texas.
Brendan, you're on the media side. And, you know, tell us of how you have seen the media evolve on how the fight is so different now when it comes to being able to find a voice in talking about these issues that we care about and being able to talk about the country we care about.
Yeah, and Florida is the greatest state in the nation, I have to say. I'm so happy that we're
I don't know,
you're
next to a Texan. I'm not sure
I'm
how
sorry,
this is
she
gonna go.
said to Texas, I have to make sure. Florida is the greatest state in the union, and we have the greatest governor, but I work...
You're outnumbered, Hannah, because I grew up in Florida.
I don't know, how many Texans
Florida.
are out there?
There you go, there's some Texans.
I actually used to work in mainstream media. I was a TV news reporter, and I saw it from behind the scenes how we were, my stories all the time. We had a good Republican county board that I would cover for my politics, and then the editors would always change the scripts, try to exaggerate things. There always had to be a controversy, even though there wasn't one, just because they were a Republican. So I started Florida's Conservative Voice, and you're right, we now have many more alternatives here in Florida. We're a red state. Our story is not being told in Florida, and that's why I said I'm done. I quit 1 year into my 3-year contract to start Florida's Conservative Voice so that our voice can actually be, our story and voice can be shared to the masses.
What do you feel right now when you're looking at the political landscape in terms of what do you feel that the conservatives can take, basically not only control, but become even a bigger movement?
Yeah, we have to create our own institutions.
Yes.
We're seeing it. There's a great nonprofit called Freedom Travel Alliance that's saying, hey, we'll fly you and you don't have to wear a mask. There's great places like Seat to Table in Naples. Alfie Oaks said, no, I'm not mandating masks in Collier County in my store. So we got to keep creating these institutions, and we will be able to overcome them because we are the majority. They always said we're the silent majority, but all of a sudden we're turning into the loud majority.
I love that,
Yeah.
the loud majority.
That's right.
Layla, I remember when we were going through this process of when I tell you vicious attacks on trying to destroy her school that was coming from the media, I've been in this business for a long time. It was brutal. Tell us, I mean, it really hit you personally on how they were trying to destroy you and your school. Tell the story.
I mean, they called me all sorts of names, insane and dangerous, moron and an idiot, somebody that I'm gonna basically destroy, kill all the kids because I'm letting them breathe fresh oxygen. And I really had to just pray a lot during that time and just find strength and realize that they're doing this because I'm on the right path.
Right.
And they don't like the fact that I am letting our kids be kids because they're on a mission to destroy our youth. And so it ended up giving me more power to fight harder and to say, no, I won't be bullied by the left. No, I won't let them stop me. In fact, I had a few parents that were on the left that came up to me and asked me to step down. I said, I won't step down from my own school. Maybe you should find another school. And, and what happened is I lost maybe about 100 kids from this whole thing, and I gained over 100 way more aligned families, families that moved from all over the country. At this moment, I have a waiting list on 5 grades, and thank you. I'm actively recruiting teachers, and I'm really, really looking for teachers that are passionate about teaching kids. They understand what our country is about. They're against critical race theory, which I'm completely against. They're against all this crazy transgender stuff that they're teaching in school. So I'm recruiting from all over the country, and new parents are coming in from all over the country.
And you've also had an interesting phenomenon happen. You've had other schools reach out to you, right? Other individuals saying, how do I start my own academy, right? Tell us that.
So I've had parents from across the country reach out to me and say, you've inspired me to take control of my kids' lives. And so they've been starting these pods and these homeschools all over the country, which I admire and I encourage everywhere. The only way to save our future is through kids.
That's right.
So I've been helping guide them as much as I can. Hopefully soon I'll have a blueprint that I can hand them and say, here, take this, do it. Because it's very admirable. It's not an easy job to run a school, but at the end of the day, all the lives and all the smiles that I see on a daily basis, it's worth it. It's worth it.
So Hannah, in terms of the school boards, we've seen these videos come out of parents really being dragged out of school board meetings, parents being called domestic terrorists. I mean, obviously I know Brendan thinks that Florida is the best, which I agree, but, but in Texas, you know, like when you see these images, what are your initial reactions?
I think it really speaks to the moment we're in right now that government could label parents who are concerned about their own children's education domestic terrorists.
Right.
I mean, where are we as a country when that is the state of affairs? But it's really important for all of you who care about your school districts to show up at those meetings, to show up and give public comments, to do open records requests, to demand transparency, to demand accountability.
But Hannah, they go after these parents. Because we've seen that happen, where you've seen investigations start on these parents.
Right. But, you know, there's strength in numbers. And if you show up with 300 parents and you are behind each other, you can really make a big difference. That's what happened in Southlake. You know, we refused to back down, and we showed up meeting after meeting after meeting, and we refused to take no for an answer. And that's what ultimately defeated this incredibly radical plan that they wanted to pass in our school district. So don't be intimidated. When you run for school board, they're going to call you all sorts of nasty names. They're going to go after the people who support you. They're going to go after the people who finance you. They're going to try and get them fired from their jobs. That happened in Southlake. Supporters were attacked by the woke mob, and they tried to cancel them and get them fired from their jobs. Ultimately, we fought back, and those people were saved, and they didn't lose their jobs. So there's strength in numbers, there's strength in truth, and there's strength in being on the right side. So don't be intimidated, and just know that you're on the right side, and that you'll be protected if you have strength in numbers.
So Brendan, I know you live in this great red state that we're all in right now, but what advice do you give to those people that are in purple states or even in blue states, just to try to survive in that? We're going to call you that you're in the safe space, okay? Yeah. Like if you move to another state, then we can talk. But like, what advice do you give those the people that are out there fighting the good fight but are just frustrated because they don't see change?
You know, going off of what Layla said earlier, it's important to have your faith in God. You know, I'm a born-again Christian. After January 6th, Everyone labeled me insurrectionist. I was there in D.C. I took 200 of our fans, me and Alfie Oakes, we took 200 of our fans up to D.C. to support President Trump. And then, of course, things went the wrong way, but they wanted to label you as the worst of the worst. So what I did was I found my faith in God, I found my inner peace, and because of that, I'm able to stand up, and you know what, I've been more powerful than ever. In Lee County, like what Hannah's saying, if it's happening in the red counties, it can happen anywhere. Lee County in Southwest Florida is one of the reddest counties in Florida. I found out in the middle of COVID, the school board passed transgender bathroom policies, letting students use whatever bathroom they want. And they're talking about sexual identity and manipulating these children. We exposed it at Florida's Conservative Voice. 2 days later, 500 parents showed up to that meeting. About a month later, and that policy was completely rescinded. So there is power in truth, and there's power in numbers, and there's power in faith. Those are the three things you got to remember and just keep moving forward and be consistent.
And Brendan, you really have like a grasp on the organic movement, right? The grassroots. What are you hearing on the ground as well in terms of what they're seeing happening, not only nationally, but internationally at this point?
It's just, we're seeing the momentum shift big time, and I can tell you here in Florida, I know a lot of people are worried about the influx of new residents that we've had because of the COVID policies from these tyrannical blue states. They're coming here and they're voting in the right way. I was just with David Rubin of the Rubin Report, and he was telling me the same thing. He's like, listen, everyone I'm speaking to, they were former liberals. They're coming here to Florida because they know Governor DeSantis is great. They want to live a free life. And you know what? We hit rock bottom with President Brandon, but there's the only way. The only way that we can go is up from here. So momentum is changing. Just keep the faith.
Layla, you understand clearly, and I just want to point this out. Like the Miami Herald, their articles, I think, were probably one of the worst. The worst. And again, you stayed strong. How has it been ever since? Now they've kind of backed off, they're leaving you alone. But do you feel that getting involved in this political process is important and telling your story?
Yeah, you know, before all of this, before COVID, I was not into politics at all. And from seeing everything that's been happening, I realized how important politics is. Even from just the school boards, the local mayor. I mean, the decisions that they can make can really ruin your lives.
And business.
And business, 100%. Shutting down businesses. DeSantis, he's fought so hard for schools to remain open, which they had. So thank God for DeSantis.
Yep.
Yes.
But more than ever, I have become an activist in all of these areas because I'm realizing that the only way we're going to save our future is through politics, through education, through our children, and really going out there. Instead of complaining about the things that aren't going right, do something about it.
Right.
That's right.
Hannah, let's get your final thoughts because we're running out of time here. I know you've talked about getting involved and all of that when it comes to our children. Do you think we're going to make a comeback?
Absolutely. I see it across the country. From coast to coast, parents are rising up and they're saying enough is enough. You know, we're in charge of our kids. We're in charge of our kids' education. And if you see it in San Francisco, California, that means it can happen anywhere. So I think this movement is a tidal wave and it is just going to continue to move across the country. But we count on all of you to get involved. You have to go back home, be inspired, start looking for those great candidates to run for school board. The most important elected official in your town is the school board trustee, because they make the decisions about what your kids are learning and the future of Americans. So if you care about the future of America, you care about the future of our democracy, you care about your children, run for school board because it really makes a difference.
And Brendan, final thoughts. You've got the last word.
Yeah, like I said, the reason why I started my own media outlet was really to give the voice to those local elections, because you know what, the Democrats are spending a lot of money in Florida, and it's not on the governor's race, it's on those school board races. So we're going to continue to expose them. I swear I'm going to use every ounce of energy I got to continue to fight these communists.
Well, let's give a round of applause to our freedom fighters on the front line, Layla, Hannah, and Brendan. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you made it.
You're amazing.
Wonderful to meet you. I don't know. All right, we're not done yet. Okay, who's still got the energy out there? You're not falling asleep on me, right? Okay. Next, we have two very powerful women, truly inspirational. Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody and the former Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, Rebecca Clayfish, who is now the gubernatorial candidate on the Republican side for the great state of Wisconsin. Warm, warm welcome to these fabulous ladies. Hello, how are you? Hi. Thank you, it's great to be home. Okay, just for the blondes out there, the brunettes have more fun, okay? Okay, well, this is wonderful. Well, y'all made it. Well, you're here, so not too far away.
Yeah, welcome to the free state of Florida. Glad to have you. It's good to be in a free state, Ashley.
Are you gonna, okay, so let's just get right to it.
Free Wisconsin.
We're trying to help you with that. We're working hard.
Thank you for setting a good example.
Well, let's get started. You've been in public service for a very long time. You were the lieutenant governor under Scott Walker, who we love. Tell me, what are you seeing? What are the changes you're seeing in Wisconsin? Obviously, you have a Democrat governor. What has he done that hasn't been working, and is it reflective of what we're seeing in the rest of the country?
Everything, Mercedes, everything that our Democrat governor has been doing is not working. And thankfully, we have a Republican legislature right now, but they're at loggerheads every single day. So that means we're not making progress.
Right.
And what Tony Evers, our terrible governor, has done is be the architect of today's status quo, which means violent crime is on the rise, 9% year over year. Did you know Milwaukee has more cars stolen today than in Chicago? It's not just violent crime that's on the rise, it's also education. How many of you are so frustrated that we've had 2 years of this virtual experiment, and now we still have kids in Wisconsin who are masked?
It's so obvious, too. Governor Evers works against the legislature when they try to do things to help.
Exactly.
For example, when they were trying to defund the police,
right,
their legislature passed a bill, much like we did here in Florida with the leadership of Governor DeSantis, that said, hey, look, if you try to cut the funding for police, we're not going to allow that. We're going to shut that down. They tried to pass a similar bill there. The governor vetoed it.
Well, we need to make sure that we're backing the badge, and Governor Evers is really out of touch. If you're familiar with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and what happened when Kenosha burned, never needed to happen. If you're familiar with what happened with the Waukesha Parade massacre, never needed to happen.
And wasn't it that he wouldn't allow the National Guard to come in? That was one of the pieces of this.
Donald Trump was the one who assured that the National Guard came in. There were enough federal agents to come in time, but 2 men had to lose their lives before any of that ever happened. Yeah. So bad on crime, bad on education, and frankly, bad on the economy. He was one of the last governors in America to pay people more to sit on the sidelines. We need people back to work.
That's right. That's right. Now, Ashley, you're in a different situation here in Florida. One of the things I've noticed is you've been talking a lot about Secretary of the Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, and the fact that just he should resign. I agree.
So you heard me, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to get your comments on how their inability to control this border is impacting states like Florida.
But the border is no different than the larger cities where you're seeing the spike in crime, the spike in violent crime, the spikes in murder. It's all about enforcing the public safety laws on the books. Mm-hmm. We have specific immigration laws, public safety immigration laws, that this administration has just abandoned. And historically, even Democrats have followed these public safety laws. One of the first things Biden did when he got into office is stop deporting those here illegally that were committing crimes, very serious felonies. Obama even did that. This should not even be up for debate. But Mayorkas is not implementing these laws. When he goes to the Border Patrol agents that are supposed to have, taken an oath to protect this country, defend the border, they're like, let us do our jobs. Mayorkas goes down there and wears a Border Patrol jacket, and they're like, why are you even wearing that? Why are you even wearing that? You're not letting us follow the laws. He's like, I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna increase their morale. I'm gonna get more processors so we can process more people coming here illegally into our country. Well, let me tell you how that's working. Biden secretly flew someone into our state who was posing as a child, a 24-year-old man who murdered a father of 4. We are feeling the effects from this lack of enforcement of the rule of law. That's what's also happening in these larger cities. Mm-hmm. You have these radical prosecutors. Some of them have never even prosecuted a case. They're not prosecutors, although they now have the title of prosecutor, and they immediately get in office, start letting people out of jail. They don't prosecute the crimes that are brought to them by law enforcement,
and it's a breakdown in enforcing the rule of law.
Ashley's
it's all
totally
the same
right.
thing, and it creates chaos, anarchy, riots in the street, organized retail theft. You're seeing the smash and grabs, but let me talk about Florida. We've been working for years on how to be proactive and strategic and keep organized retail theft from taking hold in our state. We support our sheriffs. In fact, instead of this nonsense about defunding the police, we're increasing their salaries. We're offering bonuses around the nation. I just swore in 12 officers personally here in Florida that fled New York and came to Florida.
Ashley's so right, Mercedes. I'll put 1,000 more cops on the streets, and we've got to be concerned as moms in this country for the safety and security of our families.
And I've been on the campaign trail with Donald Trump, and I remember meeting these sheriffs. You all were with us on these bus tours that we did, and we really, you would meet these police officers, the sheriffs, and they would be crying because they'd be like, I can't do my job. I'm demoralized. I can't, you know, my kid who always loved cops, now he doesn't want to become a cop because, and then you have cities like New York City where it's a disaster of a place of violence and a place where they can't control it because they have these very bad laws. They're not enforcing the laws, Ashley.
They have DAs that don't enforce their law. I mean, look at where we had the parade, that horrible incident.
John Chisholm in Milwaukee County.
Long track record in 3 different states. Violent crimes, sexual offenses. That guy got out on bond like that. And was able to
and you
commit
all are
that
dealing,
offense.
and in Wisconsin, you're dealing with that as well. I mean, the parade during the Christmas time was so tragic.
That's exactly what Ashley was talking about. You know, I was there at the funeral of an 8-year-old boy and hugged a mom who stood next to a casket made for a child. No one should have to go through that. This man was let out on low bond, and then just days later, another incident. And then days after that, we had 3 cops shot in 2 weeks in Milwaukee. This is what you get when you have these liberal district attorneys and judges who simply play catch and release with people who have rap sheets a mile long. They are violent criminals. They are out terrorizing our communities.
Or executive mayors that don't support them. So the the combination that will destroy a city, a once great thriving city, is a radical mayor, if it's a strong mayor position, and a radical DA or prosecutor that won't prosecute cases. And if you look at the top 10, 15 cities that have spiked in murder around our nation, you're most likely going to have that incredibly dangerous combo. And it is not rocket science on how to lead a state in this nation. If you pledge and work diligently to protect your people, their safety, and you protect their rights fiercely, which we have done here in Florida, while we were making decisions about the health care and safety and welfare of our folks during the pandemic, we always did so through a lens of protecting individual liberty.
Let's shift real quick to the pandemic. You all have really been a leader in terms, I know, I'm sorry, Rebecca.
It's all right.
Just win, okay?
Working on it.
Yeah, exactly. Really, you all have really been a leader in making sure that they don't have these forced mandates on the employees. I can't even tell you the number of employees that have come to me and said, I've been forced to get the jab or I would lose my job. And also getting rid of the mask mandates. What drove those decisions, and why do you believe that more states should follow?
It goes back to always making any decision with a lens of how do we do what we were meant to do when we were set up as the United States of America, protect the autonomy of states to govern the health, safety, and welfare of their people, and those state leaders have to respect individual rights and fight back when the federal government tries to encroach upon our autonomy to deal with those subject matters in our state. Because think about it. Right now, the way the United States was set up, if you don't like how California is using its police powers, you can move to Florida. In fact, we have more people moving to Florida than any other state in the nation right now. And that's because the way our government is set up, that's how it's meant to work. But if the federal government, which we gave very limited authority when we were set up, if that government starts overreaching and taking powers away from the states and impeding upon what they have the right to do, you have to have AGs and state leaders that will push back on that. Otherwise, where do people go?
Right.
Well, in January of 23, I would like to give you a run for your money in Florida and have people moving to Wisconsin. But an illustration in contrasts here is Tony Evers judged human beings, told some people they were essential, other people they were non-essential, and pitted people against each other in Wisconsin's economy. Then we saw health officials across the state and counties empowered to become tyrants. In Wisconsin, we actually had cops going out and shutting down church services. Today, there's a patchwork across our state where some children are still going to school in masks, can't play interscholastic sports. They are not allowed to go to school if they have been contact traced. We can't have a patchwork in education, not in Wisconsin, not anywhere. We need to unmask our children and let them learn.
Oh, that's right. Well, let me get some final thoughts. Ashley, I'll start with you. We'll work ourselves this way.
You know, it's so right. So keep in mind, you have to have a federal government that respects its limited authority. We do not have that at all right now. Joe Biden is trying to be creative and using all kinds of laws to overstep his authority and push his will down into the states. That's why I'm fighting right now in court to keep kids that are 2 years old from having to wear masks outside.
Yes.
Outside. This is the kind of litigation that we're having to deal with, but we will continue to do that because in our state, this is the reason more people are moving here. This is why we broke tourism records last year. This is why we have the lowest crime rate in 50 years. It is because we fiercely protect individual rights. We want to stand up for our good men and women in law enforcement, protect our people, and let them do their jobs, let them protect folks. And we want to make sure that in Florida, we still have the right to do that, and this federal government can't stop us. Governor DeSantis believes that firmly. I'm right there along with him, and we'll keep fighting for freedom here in Florida.
Well, I see what you're doing in Florida. And I'm calling my shot because we want those same freedoms in Wisconsin. Frankly, I think we want those same freedoms all across this country. And I think that strong moms can lead that revolution because we're frustrated by what we have seen. And Democrats have done the wrong things in this time for choosing, and it's time for we the parents to choose, and we choose individual
You have
liberties.
two pretty passionate mamas up here.
We
You can probably
freedom.
tell.
Yeah. So let's back the badge and let's get back to work. Let's get back to school and give government back to the people.
Yes, yes. Well, I have great hope. These are fabulous, fabulous conservative leaders, and I'm honored to call them my friends, Rebecca Clayfish, Ashley Moody. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So good to see you.
All right, you're still with me. I mean, we don't even have to go to commercial break. This is so great. So let's get right to it. I've got Governor Scott Walker with the Young America's Foundation, one of our favorites, and Congressman Madison Cawthorn of the great state of North Carolina. Gentlemen, how are you? Why don't you join over right here?
Where are you in the middle?
Right here.
Hey, good to see you.
Great to see you.
Well, I can confidently say I'm the only person here with the most comfortable chair beating these two, so.
Look, you're not wearing my heels, Madison. I don't want to hear it. Okay, well, let's get
my shoes never get dirty, so it's great.
Well, it's so great to have you both here. I was just obviously with Rebecca, who we just love, and she's running for governor of Wisconsin. And I know you had that role. And so what do you...
So I've heard, right?
You were one of the best, definitely one of the best governors there. Demi, walk us through not only what you're seeing in Wisconsin, but just generally. You're traveling across the country. You're meeting with so many young, dynamic people. Is this next generation going to save us?
Yes, we are training the next generation of freedom fighters, and we're excited about it. And, you know, you heard on the earlier panels, not only with Rebecca, but with others, first off, the thing we learned in Virginia last year is don't piss off parents.
Yes.
Because one of the few good things out of the pandemic is parents could see what was happening in the classroom. But I think the same thing's true with young people. Young people on college campuses are saying, hey, not only have we been dealing with this liberal indoctrination, with these left-wing professors, with this woke atmosphere out there, but they're sick and tired of their campuses being closed, of not getting the education they were promised, of having vaccine mandates, and of the vast hypocrisy that they see not only on college campuses, but across the country. And we've been saying for years at YAF that campuses are the canary in the coal mine. You can see how woke they've gotten there and how much that's translated into K through 12 education, into culture, and even into communications. It's got to stop. Young people are ready to fight back.
You're one of our young people, one of our young leaders, and you haven't aged like Scott and I have. But can I ask you, Madison, what are you seeing as well? As you do also travel across the country, you meet with such a diverse group of patriots. What's their message? What are they asking you? What are they worried about?
Well, I'll tell you, I believe people in my generation, people, especially ones who lean conservative, one, I believe until really this last election cycle, they kind of felt like they were alone, that there were no real conservatives out there. But since we went through the pandemic, people have really started realizing, oh, there's a lot more of us than the mainstream media would have us believe. And the thing I have found from young patriots across this country is that they're tired of being categorized in the Republican Party as being the party of no, as being the party that just is against things but doesn't actually have any ideas of how to successfully fix things. And you're starting to see people in the conservative movement now coming out with policy objectives saying, hey, the ideology of this wokeism, the ideology of trying to sell America out to the highest bidder across the sea is no longer going to work. I mean, people in my generation, they want to be able to work and to prosper in peace. I mean, they want to be able to raise a family. They don't want to have to be an eternal renter because of insane student loan debt. Many people in my generation are starting to find that if you're getting a humanities degree now, it's completely pointless, which is sad. I mean, just 20 years ago at any of the Ivy Leagues, the humanities was the core of that.
Right.
It led to some great things, but then you started seeing this wokeism come out on campus, and I think, like many people in this room, we all just said, oh, that's so silly. Can you believe these college students? But where did that lead us? It led us to AOC. It led us to having the squad in Washington, D.C. And young conservatives across this country are now saying, we're not going to be categorized as being these radical leftists because we no longer believe in this ideology that killed 100 million people in the last century. We're now going to come out and go on offense instead of just playing defense.
So, Scott, social media has such a huge influence in this next generation. I mean, it pretty much defines them when you're talking about a selfie or going on TikTok, and a lot of it is mindless. So what is the concern there, and I guess how can conservatives utilize it in their favor, as we know there's a lot of canceling going on in the meantime?
Well, big tech is just like big business, big labor, big government. We're on the side, conservatives are on the side of the little guy, the hardworking men and women of our country, and certainly small business owners. But one of the encouraging signs is we've done all sorts of research. Again, at yf.org, you can see the things we're working on, but it's all sorts of research with young people. And what's really encouraging is you hear Twitter all the time in media, and yeah, we're on there, other groups are on there. You know what the #1 way Generation Z gets their information? YouTube. And why that's important, granted there are disadvantages and challenges there as well, but we saw our YouTube subscribers during the pandemic more than double.
Interesting.
And it's content driven. So we have someone like Ben Shapiro, we just added a new speaker, Kellyanne Conway, we have all these, Matt's been on some of our things as well. We see these speakers, and where the YouTube content is so great is young people watch not just the lecture on campus, they watch the Q&A. They want to hear, as you were talking about, the crazy questions from that radical teaching assistant or others out there, because they want to hear, how do I respond to it in the classroom, with my friends, on social media? And the good news is they're gravitating towards content. So as conservatives, as you said, Congressman, we got to talk about big ideas. We got to be on the side of young people and entrepreneurs and people want to start up their own businesses. They're hungry for it. And they know, more than anything, young people believe in fairness. And when you point out that it's not fair, when we exposed a college professor at Iowa State University who actually said, if you're against abortion, against traditional, or against same-sex marriage, and if you're against BLM, the organization, you're out of my class, we exposed that. And thankfully, at least in Iowa, the university system said, no, that's not free speech. Young people get free speech, they get the woke culture, they don't want to be a part of it, they don't see it as fair. That's where conservatives have a real shot.
And Governor, just to add on top of that, the social media aspect is actually being weaponized against our country. You know, we all heard when TikTok came out from China, it's like, oh, we thought it was this information gathering. apparatus they wanted to create, but it's actually much more diabolical than that. If you look at the algorithms, what they're encouraging young people in America to do to be able to go viral and to get a lot of views on their TikToks and these videos, is to learn some silly dance or to do something that's completely mindless and meaningless. But if you look at the algorithms in China, what they're encouraging their young children to do, the things that make them go viral, is building something incredible through STEM or through engineering, or being able to go out and speak incredibly fluently and well, or having great patriotic and masculine values. And these are the things they encourage for their youth, yet they're trying to subvert our entire culture.
Yeah, it's like dumbing down of America is the whole thing. Madison, I do want to really quick, talking about canceling, obviously they're trying to cancel you from even...
Are they really?
Yeah.
Does the left not like
let's
me?
talk.
I had no idea.
Go tell our crew here what's going on and what you're doing.
Yes, indeed. So make no mistake, there's a gentleman named Mark Elias, a terrible human being. Yeah.
Okay, that's like a huge boo.
And
okay?
I'll tell you the reason why. He was really the quarterback of all the shenanigans that happened in 2020 in our election. And he participates in something that we've coined as lawfare. And it's using the judicial system against their political enemies. And so because of what happened on January 6th, you know, they started trying to say, and I just thought they were trying to get a catchy tagline for their headlines. They started throwing around seditionists and insurrectionists and these words from the mainstream media. Well, now we see that it was all a completely coordinated effort to set the standard to say, well, because he participated in an insurrection, the 14th Amendment bars him from being able to be in office. And make no mistake, I don't know why they chose me first. Perhaps it's because I tell Nancy Pelosi she's not God every single day. But you hear this group from Western North Carolina. They love it. It's great. But I'll tell you, if they are successful in being able to keep me off the ballot, it will set a precedent that anyone who had questions or some concerns about the 2020 election and what happened there, they maybe expressed it on Facebook or on Twitter, then they will be able to bar every single one of those people from ever being able to hold office in America and destroy the America First mission. And so I'm telling you, one, this is a spiritual battle, I genuinely believe. And so please be praying for this. Pray for the judges involved, the lawyers involved. But the American people need to be awake to what's going on. When these people say, oh, well, you're a threat to democracy and you need to go out and vote like democracy depends on it. Well, I want to say back to them, why don't you start governing like the country depends on it?
Right.
Why don't we actually start doing something for the American people instead of using our government and our institutions to attack hardworking, good-hearted Americans across this country? I think all of us in this room are sick and tired of it, and it's time we stand up and fight.
And the left has a well-funded, coordinated effort to stop any effective Republican or conservative. That is their goal, and they're going to try to do it through election as well. Scott, I want to get your reaction to what we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine right now, obviously the Russian aggression, and why Americans need to be concerned about this.
Well, it ties in actually with just, Congressman, what you were talking about. Woke weakness leads to things like we're seeing in the White House and what we're seeing around the world. Ronald Reagan talked about peace through strength. When you're weak, you get in the war, not when you're strong. And this president, sadly, is leading us towards a scenario where the world might very well end up in war again. And it goes all the way back to what he did in Afghanistan and what a debacle that was. He's allowed not only tyrants there, but in Iran and elsewhere around the world. We don't get into war when we're strong. We get into war when we're weak. And that's a lesson we need to learn, and why history is so important. You know, this president, unfortunately, seems to be more like Neville Chamberlain than just Jimmy Carter, and that's something we should all be afraid of.
Madison, the Daily Beast came out with an article basically saying, like, don't blame Biden for Russia, Ukraine. Should we believe that?
My friends, I want our president to be loved by the American people. I genuinely do, whenever we elect our president. But what I really, truly want in a president is for the rest of the world to be terrified of them. We are the most powerful nation that has ever existed on this planet, and we need to be able to exert that. But we also need to realize that the days of endless wars and sending our sons and daughters to die across the sea for other nations, that those need to be gone. We need to be able to use economic sanctions to be able to stop. I mean, really, this all could have been stopped by being able to stop the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from being constructed.
Yes.
It would have been so simple. But my friends, think about this. Joe Biden, we've all heard of the shenanigans that happened with Burisma. We all happened, everything that went on with Ukraine. I just don't understand when we import 595,000 barrels of oil from Russia every single year. Yet, if we were to have the Keystone Pipeline, we would create 850,000 barrels of oil. My friends, this president has been corrupted by the radicals across this country, by Putin, by Xi Jinping. And my friends, we're starting to see the consequences of that. You see why Xi Jinping and Putin both wanted Biden to be president. Because now, Taiwan is unfortunately getting an unprecedented preview of what's going to happen, and it's very sad.
You talked about Taiwan. The New York Times reported a story about Chinese intelligence, basically the Biden administration sharing information with the Chinese, sharing intelligence with the Chinese officials. Chinese officials handed that over to Moscow officials. Your reaction?
Well, in America, there should be no greater friend and no worse enemy. And unfortunately, we're seeing it reversed under this administration. And Peter Schweitzer is going to talk to our student lunch here at CPAC in just about an hour. His book, Red Handed, talks exactly about the problems you see, not with just Joe Biden, with his entire family. These are the facts that young people, when they come to our conferences, say, we never heard this. And I don't blame young people for being liberal. I blame the rest of us for not doing enough to get the word out early in life, not just in college, and tell them the truth. They're hungry for the truth.
Final thoughts as we've run out of time. Madison.
Well, you know, I genuinely believe that the world is a safer place when America is strong. When the greatest generation defeated evil in World War II, we had 70 years of no real power in the world trying to gain more territory. Until Joe Biden took over, until for the last 6 decades, the Republican Party has been on defense, not taking ground every single day, but just capitulating to the left inch by inch by inch, to where our country is so weak that our enemies feel emboldened. This is why I've come out with a new contract with America that will reestablish America as the dominant force on the planet. If you guys want to look into that, you can go to newcontractwithamerica.org. This one's a little different than the others. And instead of trying to convince 218 members of Congress to sign on to it, I want to convince 30 or 60 million Americans to start getting involved, because it is time for the people to be in command of this country, not the people in Washington, D.C.
Last word.
Most important thing you can do for America right now is pray. Pray for our young people, pray for our military, pray for our leaders, even those we disagree with. Pray that God might open their eyes to doing what's right and just, to respect and protect the republic that we love.
You both are great. I mean, round of applause for Governor Scott Walker, Congressman Madison Cawthorn. And that's it. Our talk show is over. You've all been a great audience. Thank you all.
Good job.